Hey everyone, John here! And it is another day which means a lot more Nintendo Switch 2 news. Now first up, this is Beauty Boy Xeon Grassel. We love Beauty Boy Xeon Grassel, and he got the chance to interview Nate Bildorf from Nintendo of America. And there's a bunch of things that Nate discussed with Xeon. And one of the biggest things that I think we should mention is about the sticks. Well, the JoyCon 2's controllers have been designed from the ground up. They're not Hall Effect sticks, but they feel really good. Did you experience both the Joy-Con and Pro Controller? Xeon says both. So I like both, but the Pro Controller, for some reason, the first time I grabbed it, it was like, this feels like a GameCube controller. I was a GameCube guy, something about it felt familiar, but the stick especially. I tried to spend time making sure that it was quiet. I don't know if you tried really whacking the stick around, but it really is quiet. And thinking back to my Smash Brothers days, where you just whack it, it's one of the quietest controllers I've ever played. So, we didn't get an answer about Hall Effects, there are no Hall Effects, but it is a quiet stick. Now, if you're wondering what a Hall Effect stick is, the Dreamcast use Hall Effect sticks, and it's basically to constantly sync the controller using magnets so that it can never drift. It's constantly synced with where the stick is. Now, could the Switch 2 even use Hall Effects when magnets are such a core part of the system? I don't know, but I also don't think it not having Hall Effect sticks means that it will not have defeated Drift. Drift was a huge deal with the Switch 1, they are aware of that, so I would not bet all my chips that Drift has not been resolved. I think there will be lots of countermeasures for Drift, but Hall Effect sticks are not one of them, but it is a headline that it does not have Hall Effects. And in the exact same interview, Nate confirms you can remap your buttons on a game-by-game basis. He says exactly this: the beauty of it is that you're going to be able to map your controller preferences by game and by profile. So once you have that thing perfect, the next time you boot that game up, you're booting it up as you. It's going to have your profile saved. It's going to be just like the experience you want. And that's a cool thing. For some reason, Dark Souls on the Switch has a PlayStation format, despite it still being Nintendo buttons, so B is accept, and I didn't like that. So when I play Dark Souls, I tend to remap the buttons on Switch, but then that's a fumble for when you play other games, so it gets in the way. But that's going to be a game-by-game, profile-by-profile basis, which is awesome. And I think the last thing from this interview to highlight, and you can read the entire thing yourself, and I urge that you do because there's some really cool stuff in there, is about mouse sensitivity. You can change the mouse sensitivity yourself. It's not just stuck at a raw sensitivity. Here's what they say. One important thing to note is that people are able to adjust mouse sensitivity based on what they want to do in the settings on a system level. So it's the type of thing where if you're feeling like, oh, I want to play on my legs, but I'm not getting a whole lot of leeway here, you're going to be able to adjust that sensitivity so that smaller motions would work, or that larger movements can work on a system level. So that's awesome. The mouse is going to be quite versatile, and so will all the other controls, not just on a system level, but a game-by-game and profile-by-profile level. But we're not done, because IGN got an interview too, and they confirmed things about price. Quite a few things about price, so let's get into price for a moment. Price. So again, this is from IGN, and you can check out their interview. There's a lot of really cool stuff. But the first thing to mention is the upgrade packs for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. These will be included for NSO Plus expansion subscribers, but what if you're not a subscriber? What if you just want to upgrade and not buy the entire game again? How much will that cost? Well, we now have a price. It is going to cost you $9.99 to get the upgrade pack. That gets you 1440p resolution, 60 FPS, the Zelda Notes app, 2 save slots, lets you do QR codes to save a bunch of vehicle makes. You can send items to friends. There's a whole bunch in there, really. I think that's fairly reasonable. It's not the most extravagant upgrade in terms of new content, but you know, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are two of the most iconic Switch games, and I think a lot of us want to experience them in higher fidelity. And the new stuff is genuinely pretty cool. But what about the price of the Welcome Tour? Is it free? No, it's not. So the Welcome Tour is going to set you back $9.99. There's a theme with that price here, apparently. It's 990 yen, which comes to around $6, so we're getting a little bit of an increase compared to the yen conversion. But you know, when first seeing this, it seemed like it would just be a basic, tour of the hardware. But there are some genuinely pretty cool games in there. Treehouse showed off some quite cool stuff. So for $9.99, which is hopefully less in pounds, I'm tempted. I am tempted. I'm not going to lie to you. I think I feel bad for being tempted, but I think there's some cool stuff that I want to try out with that mouse. Now we've got 2 more things about price from 2 different sources, so let's begin with The Verge. And Doug Bowser has told The Verge that currently tariffs are not considered in the Switch 2 price. And just to make sure that it's interpreted the right way, that is not to say that tariffs will not affect the Switch 2 price. It is just to say that the $449.99 price did not have tariffs involved in its decision. However, that will likely change. But the reason it's $450 is not because of tariffs. But the reason it will be $700 will be because of tariffs if all of that goes down the way it is expected to go down. But as of now, tariffs were not factored into the price. Now let's go into one more thing about price from the Washington Post, where Doug Bowser said this about Switch 2 game pricing. What you see right there is variable pricing. We'll look at each game, really look at the development that's gone into the game, the breadth and depth of the gameplay, if you will, the durability over time, and the repeatability of the gameplay experience. Those are all factors, and there's many more that go into the consideration of what is the right price point for the game. So I think you can anticipate that there'll be variable pricing, and we haven't set a benchmark. So I think this is a good point to say, because I've seen it a lot. Mario Kart World is not $90. It is $80. That's not a whole lot better. But there is a story going around that it's 90. It's 90 euros, but it's not $90. But $80 is still a step above $70, which is a step above $60. So what Doug is basically saying there is they can be whatever they want them to be. So maybe 90 is not a unreachable thing, but right now 80 is the ceiling, and hopefully most games stay at 70, but hopefully even more games stay at 60. All right, I think we're done with pricing for now, but we're not done entirely. There's more. There's more stuff. You've probably wondered why Nintendo have done away with eShop music, and they have both confirmed that the Switch 2 will not have eShop music, and also why they've done away with it. So Polygon got to interview Kawamoto. Again, there will be a link to this in the description, and he said this. Unlike back then, the eShop now has lots of videos that are showcasing the games. We didn't want to intrude on that, so we don't have music there. That is literally it. It will continue not to have eShop music because they don't want to intrude on videos. Now, it's true that no other storefront has music. PlayStation doesn't have music, Steam doesn't have music, Xbox doesn't have music, and this is probably a big reason about that. But they also say this about performance. I wanted to make sure that it was a smooth experience, that the scrolling the list doesn't stall, that it's very smooth, pages load fast. That's all good too. But yes, the reason it doesn't have music is because they don't want to constantly interrupt the music with videos playing when looking at games. Which makes sense, but it's also a shame that we're missing out on the biggest bangers of our lives, being the Wii Shop channel and the 3DS and Wii U eShop music. So Switch 2 Edition news made the waves a few days ago about whether all the game data is going to be on the cartridge. A rep said they won't be, but now the Rune Factory socials are saying something else entirely. So this is the box art for Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, and in the small print right there looks very similar to the one on the Nintendo box. It says, this Nintendo Switch 2 Edition comprises the Nintendo Switch game and the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition upgrade pack. And let's see what Nintendo's own small print says. There says the exact same thing. However, the socials, right now, they are saying this. They responded to a user saying, will there be a physical release on Switch? And they say, yes, there will be a physical standard on the Switch. Someone else said, well, it will be on the cartridge. And they say the Switch 2 physical version of the game will be on the cart, pending any patches or updates that will be required to download. But that first bit there is pretty definitive, that the Switch 2 physical version will be on the cart, not the Switch 1 physical version. And even more interestingly, the Australian box art doesn't have that small print at all. I think this kind of throws into question whether all these Switch 2 editions will be this way. Because part of me is thinking this is just miscommunication from Nintendo. And hopefully they can iron this out, because I really do hope that Switch 2 physical cartridges exist for these older games, because why else would you buy them? Especially as a collector, like there's no reason to have the Switch 2 edition of Zelda if it's just the Switch 1 cartridge. But it's a confusing thing right now, right? And I think we're mostly out of news, but I also want to highlight one other thing, and it's something we did talk about in our preview. So the JoyCon charging grip has a use now. It's no longer just about charging, which you could already do by putting them on the system, which you probably did after using them anyway. Now, the GL and GR buttons, like the Pro Controller has, the little back panels you can program to be whatever you want, they're on the charging grip. So you don't got to spend whatever it is to buy a Pro Controller 2. You can spend like $35 on the charging grip and get the functionality of a Pro Controller for your Joy-Con. I think that's pretty cool. It's something I've not seen talked about much, and I genuinely think that is rad. I think we're out of news now, though. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, and there's probably even more stuff by the time I've made this video. But thank you so much for watching, and we will catch you next time. Bye, everyone.